بسم الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. As we continue in the explanation of this tremendous treatise entitled Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra by the great Imam Abu al-Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani Dimashqi, the one who died 728 after the migration of our beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The time now is 6:39 p.m. Thursday, December the 15th, on this evening of Thursday, 2022, the Gregorian calendar, which agrees with the Hijri calendar, the 23rd night of Jum'ah, technically, where the time, or rather the date, technically, like we said, starts at the, or the new day starts at the Maghrib, technically. We're now in Jum'ah, the 23rd of Jum'at al-Awwal. Jum'at al-Awwal, but the year now is 1444, after the migration of our Prophet, over the years of 1444 after the migration of our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. We continue, rather we finish elaborating on the aqidah of Abu Hanifa, the great Imam, from those four madhahib that we know. We concluded the matter of what was his belief in regards to Allah, and his belief of Allah being above. As we finalized, and we explained and clarified it for everyone. So, your father, Shaykh al-Islam, like we said, he used these proofs in order to establish of those who claim that they follow the madhab al-Hanafi, what the affair in actuality was, meaning what was Abu Hanifa upon, what was his belief, especially in the greatest of knowledge, rather the knowledge is pertaining to Allah Himself and our Lord, where He is, rather Him being above the heavens. Like we mentioned previously, this was a matter that was not just the belief of great scholars who are upon Ahlul Sunnah, nor was this just the belief of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The belief of Allah being above the heavens was a belief of all the prophets and all the messengers. This was not a matter that they differed in. It was a matter that they were unanimously agreeing. So it was a belief of all the prophets and all the messengers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was above. And not only is it a belief, as we mentioned, of the prophets and the messengers, it's a belief of the angels. As the angels believe that Allah is above. And even the enemies, and the greatest of our enemies, who are the shayateen, they even believe Allah is above. The devils, of what they stack upon one another in order to attain some news in the heavens, pertaining to some people in the earth, of what they steal of something preordained for certain people in this world, in which they pass down to their awliya, to those who are close to them, from those who claim knowledge to have, or those who claim to have knowledge of the unseen, from those who are considered psychic tellers or palm readers, or those who claim to predict the future based upon utilizing the devils. Those matters, as we mentioned and said, brothers and sisters, that is knowledge that was passed on from the devils. You'll find that the message of Allah, the authentic narration, it says that the devils, they stack upon one another until they ascend to the heavens in order to attain some news that has been preordained from someone or something within the creation, and then they mix with it an abundance of lies. So, in actuality, when that psychic teller, he could possibly say something that is true, because the devil stole from what was preordained for you. They stole that news from what was preordained, but the problem, or the affair that we want to be attentive of, is what, everyone? That the Prophet ﷺ said that the devil stacked one upon another to ascend to the heavens in order to attain that news. So even from the shayateen, and from the head of them is Iblis. Is Iblis himself, the head and the leaders of the devils. Him, Iblis, you'll know that he has knowledge of Allah and pertaining to where he is. Allah is above. So all these matters, you'll find, like we said, is unanimous. It is agreed upon with all the prophets and messengers. Not just these great scholars from Abu Hanifa and Imam al-Shafi'i, those who are greater than them, who are the prophets and the messengers. They all believe that Allah is above. Prophet Musa, Prophet Isa, Prophet Dawood, Prophet Sulaiman, Prophet Nuh, to the end, وَهَلُمَ جَرَّةً, and so on and so forth. All of them believe that Allah is above. Unanimously agreed upon, without any differ. The only people who differ in that affair is the people who have been affected by Greek philosophy and Greek mythology after them. So who's rightly guided? The prophets and the messengers, or those who follow, who are initially from the idol worshippers? Because we know that Greek mythology was filled with the filth, and the greatest of all filth, of idolatry. With them believing of all or multiple gods. And what came as a result of that, and from that, is philosophy. From them, from Aristotle and Plato and the likes of them, who came with philosophy in which some of the Muslims adopted. As a result of it, they came with these disgusting concepts and beliefs and convictions, and from them is that Allah is not above. They try to use philosophy where the mind dictates and overpowers revelation, whereas absolute nonsense, that's absurd. Rather, revelation came to dictate and overpower the mind and rightly guide it, and submit to the revelation. So that's what we talked about before in regards to what everyone, Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, where he believed clearly, as we mentioned last class, that Allah is above, and he also declared that the one who's reluctant in that belief fell into disbelief, and he declared them to be a disbeliever. Just for the one who's reluctant, or that's waqif, as he said, who's reluctant. He said, I don't know for sure. They want to play the neutral role. They want to play the neutral ground. Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to say he is. I'm not going to say he isn't. I'm not going to say Allah's above. I'm not going to say he isn't above. You know, I don't really know. Is he above? I don't say he's not in the heavens, nor is he in the earth. All those matters, as we said, notice that Imam Abu Hanifa, what did he say in regards to him? That person has fell into disbelief, wal-'iyadhu billah, due to the fact that he belied or rejected the ayah in the book of Allah, as we explained last class. Right, everyone? Fine. So we concluded the affair of what's pertaining to Abu Hanifa in regards to his belief, and what was the position, or what was his position from the one who's reluctant in believing that Allah is above the heavens. And we talked about the affairs pertaining to the Arsh. In regards to Allah, the person will use the ayah, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, the most merciful above the throne ascended. Like, before we talk about where Allah is, we ask, where's the Arsh? Where's the throne? Ask them, where's this huge throne? And you'll find that Abdullah ibn Abbas said it cannot be even counted its size, or it can't even measure its size. Where is this throne? Where is it at? This throne in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established in His book and the authentic sunnah, that it's above, it's high. Rather, it's considered the roof of the creation. Meaning that is the highest point of the creation, and when the creation stops. The roof of the creation is considered the Arsh, the throne of Allah, which cannot be measured. And above the throne of Allah Ta'ala is Allah Himself. So that's the stopping point, as we said, everyone, was pertaining to what? Of the creation, which is considered the Arsh. And that's what a person would ask. If a person came in order to so-called debate, no, Allah is not above. Okay, let's leave that to the side. Where's the throne at? Allah is not above. Answer the question, where's the throne? Because the throne can't be everywhere. And it cannot be below. Where's the throne of Allah? Where? They can't answer. The only way they can answer is to answer with the correct one, which is what? It's above the heavens. And we know that Allah has said that He is where? Above the throne. Tayyib. Those matters, as we said, that Abu Hanifa mentioned, we concluded and we move on. So now let's look in the book, everyone. So وروى هذا اللفظ عنه بالإسناد شيخ الإسلام أبو إسماعيل الأنصاري الهروي بإسناده في كتاب الفاروق. وروى هو أيضا وابن أبي حاتم أن هشام بن عبيد الله الرازي, we'll talk about that in a second, الرازي صاحب محمد بن حسن الشيباني قاضي الري حبس رجلا في التجهم فتاب فجيء به إلى هشام ليطلق صراحه إلى هشام ليطلقه أو ليطلق صراحه فقال الحمد لله على التوبة فامتحنه هشام فقال أتشهد أن الله على عرشه بائن من خلقه فقال أشهد أن الله على عرشه ولا أدري ما بائن من خلقه فقال ردوه إلى الحبس فإنه لم يتوب. So Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah continues after he clarified the belief of Abu Hanifa, another great scholar. Even though I wanted to get into his history a little bit more, but Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah related what his belief was. Who is he? Let's read it now. وَرَوَى هَذَا اللَّفْظَ عَنْهُ. Also who mentioned the belief that Allah is above from the great scholars of the past with a chain, with an authentic chain, is Shaykh al-Islam. So no Shaykh al-Islam called him Shaykh al-Islam. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah called this individual Shaykh al-Islam. I'll talk about him in depth a little bit more because there was some affairs of tasawwuf that he fell into, but we'll clarify that later. His name was Abu Ismail al-Ansari al-Harawi. Al-Harawi. He had a book that was entitled Al-Faruq. Al-Faruq. في كتاب الفاروق. Abu Ismail al-Harawi, everyone, is an Imam al-Hafiz al-Kabir. Abu Ismail, just summarize his name by saying his name was what? Abdullah ibn Muhammad. His name is a little bit longer than that, but let's just suffice with that. Abdullah ibn Muhammad. طيب. Al-Harawi al-Ansari was from the lineage of the great Sahabi Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. As we know from the great Sahaba, the Messenger of Allah was who? Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Radiallahu anhu. This scholar of the past, Abu Ismail al-Harawi, he was from the lineage, not from the Sahaba, no. His lineage traced back to Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. His dhurriya is from the dhurriya, from the lineage or the family of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, the great Sahabi radiallahu anhu. But you'll find that Abu Ismail al-Harawi, he was the Imam of his time in a lot of different funun, in a lot of different knowledge. There was a book entitled Al-Faruq. Abu Ismail al-Harawi entitled a book, Faruq. There's also something I'm going to mention in regards to him, which is tied in with the book I'm sure some of us are familiar with, which is called what, everyone? What is it called? Madarij al-Salikin by Ibn al-Qayyim. Right? But what's the correlation? How do we correlate between al-Harawi and Madarij al-Salikin by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah? But Imam al-Harawi has some great books. From them is Al-Faruq, the book called Al-Faruq, in regards to the attributes of Allah. Don't worry, I'm going to explain in a minute why it's related or connected to Madarij al-Salikin. Not this book. This book that Shaykh al-Islam mentioned, called Al-Faruq, that was from one of his books that he authored. Shaykh al-Islam mentioned this book specifically because in that book called Al-Faruq, he mentioned the attributes of Allah. And the attributes of Allah that he mentioned, that he believed, was that Allah was above and that Allah ascended above the throne. So that's the reason why Shaykh al-Islam mentioned him here. Keep in mind that from the mazaya or the mumayyizat, from the distinguishing factors about this book, Al-Hamawiyyah, is that Shaykh al-Islam brought statements from great scholars of the past that a lot of the Muslims ascribe themselves to, and that they say that they are upon what they're upon. But however, Shaykh al-Islam brings their statements in order to establish upon those people that claim that they follow these great scholars that you in actuality are in opposition to what they're upon. And that what we believe agrees with what they believe, and vice versa. So you'll find that that was from the distinguished traits of this book that stands out, is that Shaykh al-Islam used this book and mentioned in it statements of great scholars that are revered with us, with Ahl Sunnah, and certain scholars that are revered with them. Meaning people of philosophy that fell into it and then they what? Made tawbah. From them was Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, rahimahullah, who the Ash'ari to this day ascribe themselves to. That at that time you'll find that he's revered. To this day he's revered, because he made tawbah and he returned back to what was correct. But you'll find that there are also people from the past that fell into embracing Greek philosophy and denying that Allah is above as a result of it. So Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah brought their statements in order to establish the proof that their beliefs are incorrect. To deny and reject that Allah is above does not agree with the statements of the scholars that you revere and that we revere in regards to them being from Ahl Sunnah. طيب. Abu Ismail al-Harawi had a book called Al-Faruq. He mentioned in it the characteristic of the ascension of Allah, meaning Allah ascending. Ascending above the throne after Allah Ta'ala created the heavens and the earth and that which is between it in 6 days. Then Allah's wisdom particularized the Arsh, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ascend above it. And just because Allah ascend above it does not mean He needs it. It does not mean that Allah sits. That's not what we say at all. Rather, Allah Ta'ala has created things from the creation that what? That is above, and it doesn't recline on anything, even though it is above us. From them is the stars. From them is the sun. From them is the moon. From them there are celestial bodies that we see that are above us, and at the same time it does not need to sit on anything even though it is above us. So just because something being above, Allah created these great signs, which is the sun and the moon, and other than that, from the creation that hovers above us, and at the same time it does not need to recline on anything even though it has the characteristic of being high and constantly being there. If that's the case, if that's what Allah has the ability to create, certain things from the creation that has the ability to be above and it does not sit or recline on anything, what about Allah Himself? As we talked about on many occasions, that just because Allah is above, that He does not need the throne at all. Rather, that's an ijma', that's a consensus. That Allah Ta'ala does not need anything. He does not need the creation. He does not need have a partner, nor does Allah have children, because the children are a need. That's the reason why we don't believe that Allah has kids. Allah Ta'ala does not need anything, nor the throne, nor the angels, nor the creation, nor does He have children. Children is a need to continue your lineage in the earth. That's a need. Allah does not need anything. We need Him. And the throne needs Him, and the angels need Him. The creation needs Him, and Allah does not need the creation. It's that simple. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala is self-sufficient, independent of everything, which is a characteristic of what they call ghina. Ghina mutlaq, absolute self-sufficiency. Allah does not need anything. The throne, the angels, the human beings. Nothing. Is it clear, everyone? Jayy. طيب. The other book that Abu Ismail al-Harawi, that he authored, was a book called Manazil al-Sa'ilin. What does that sound like? Madarij al-Salikin. طيب. The book Manazil al-Sa'ilin was a book in Tasawwuf that Shaykh al-Islam, or rather we would say Ibn al-Qayyim, came behind to what? That he came and clarified and pointed out a lot of the errors that were in that book. And he entitled it Madarij al-Salikin. Madarij al-Salikin. So that book, Madarij al-Salikin, was originally a book by who? Abu Ismail al-Harawi. Abu Ismail al-Harawi, or you could call him Abdullah ibn Muhammad Ismail al-Harawi, entitled the book Manazil al-Sa'ilin. Manazil al-Sa'ilin, which was a book in Tasawwuf, in which a lot of people glorified, and Ibn al-Qayyim came behind and what? Haddabahu. That he came and he what? Clarified a lot of the errors that were in it, and he brought the benefits that it possessed until he called it or entitled it what? Madarij al-Salikin. Madarij al-Salikin. طيب. Abu Ismail al-Harawi, that was from his books that he authored. He also had some books mentioning the praiseworthy traits of the great Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, which was called Manaqib, meaning the praiseworthy, or the praise, or the merits of Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani, rahimahullah. But anyway, I don't want to go too deep into this. Al-Imam al-Zahabi said about this book that he authored in regards to the names and attributes of Allah, which was called Al-Faruq. That's the point of reference that we want to focus on. That was just side benefit. The other things about Ibn al-Qayyim, that was just a side benefit. Don't lose track or focus on what we're mentioning. The point of what we're mentioning about why Shaykh al-Islam mentioned him was due to this book entitled Al-Faruq. 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 It was a book affirming the attributes of Allah. In it, affirming the attributes of Allah that Al-Imam al-Zahabi mentioned concerning that book. He said, Kitab al-Faruq Sihah. غالب ما رواه في كتاب الفاروق صحاح وحسان. The majority of what he mentioned in his book Al-Faruq are authentic and also sound. They're authentic and sound. وفيه باب إثبات وفيه باب إثبات استواء الله على عرشه فوق السماء السابعة بائنا من خلقه. Keep in mind what Imam al-Zahabi is saying here. The great Imam al-Zahabi. And Imam al-Zahabi is also from the students of who? Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. Is it clear, everyone? Imam al-Zahabi was also from the great Imam and from the students of Shaykh al-Islam. طيب. This book, Faruq, he said concerning it. He said, in this book is a chapter affirming the ascension of Allah above the throne, above the seven heavens. So this was a belief of an Imam al-Zahabi. And he was also mentioning this book and praising the book of Abu Ismail al-Harawi called Al-Faruq. But he said, Al-Harawi affirmed Allah being above the heavens and that He ascended above the throne. Right? This is what I want everyone to be attentive of. this statement, ba'inun min khalqihi, that Allah is ba'in min khalqihi, that He is separate and distinct from His creation. Separate and distinct from His creation. What is the meaning, ba'in min khalqihi? What does that necessitate? What does that mean? Meaning Allah is not mixed with the creation, nor is the creation mixed with Allah. Is it clear? That Allah is not mixed with the creation, nor is the creation mixed with Allah. Allah is separate and distinct from His creation. بائن من خلقه من الكتاب والسنة فساق دلائل ذلك من الآيات والأحاديث إلى أن قال وفي أخبار شتى. So the Imam al-Zahabi mentioned this. طيب, another book that I want everyone to have in their mind by the great Imam al-Zahabi. Have this memorized. Because people will try to use Imam al-Zahabi as an evidence, not realizing that Imam al-Zahabi also believed what? That Allah is above. What's the proof? The proof is this. The Imam al-Zahabi has a book called Al-Ulu lil-Ali al-Ghaffar. Al-Ulu lil-Ali al-Ghaffar. The book is entitled this, The Highness. The ulu, the highness, or the loftiness, for lack of better words, the aboveness, even though that's not a word. Aboveness, loftiness is in high, but just to give some extra clarity, aboveness, which is like we said, is not an English word. The loftiness or the highness of what? The most high and the all-forgiving. Right? And the Imam al-Zahabi, that book is still matbu', it's copied. You can find it. It's in 2 thick volumes. But anyway, and Imam al-Zahabi in that whole book, bringing a hadith that Allah is above the heavens. And from beginning to the end, bringing all the narrations, whether they be sahih, hasan, da'if, whether they be authentic, sound, or weak. Where some of the chains that are weak are correct in its meaning. Is it clear, everyone? Because some of those narrations in those books, a person would say, why did the ulama, from some of them in the past, mention narrations that are authentic, weak, authentic, sound, and weak? Why did they mention the weak ones? From the reasons why they mentioned the weak ones, is for this reason. They mentioned the foundation, which is authenticity. Those narrations that are what? Authentic. Or what? Sound. They build their aqidah of those narrations. So once they establish that, then they mention what is weak. For what reason? Because some of the narrations that are weak, the meaning is correct. Because the authentic narrations affirmed it. Is it clear? So even though it might have been weak, the meaning is what? Why is it correct? Because the authentic ones what? Affirmed it. Is it clear? That's the reason why you'll find some of those books in the past, why the ulama did that. Because you have to be careful, even though a narration could be possibly weak, but the meaning is still what? Correct, and you have to believe it. Why? Because those authentic narrations affirmed it. So you have to be very careful. So that's why, and one of the reasons why they mention those narrations. Right, everyone? طيب. The great Imam al-Albani came and he summarized the book Al-Ulum by Ali al-Ghaffar al-Dhahabi, which was entitled Mukhtasar al-Ulum. Mukhtasar al-Ulum. The summary of the book Al-Ulum. Where Imam al-Albani summarized it from the book Al-Imam al-Dhahabi Al-Ulum al-Ali al-Ghaffar, which is another tremendous great book. That if one had the time to attain it, and read it, that book is very important, especially because of Imam al-Albani, he summarized it. And in that book, like we mentioned, he also affirmed all the narrations that also, affirmed that Allah Ta'ala is above the heavens. Is it clear, everyone? Tafadal.
What's the name of this book?
Mukhtasar al-Ulum. Mukhtasar. Summarize. The summarized version of the book Ulum. Mukhtasar al-Ulum. طيب. So let's keep going, everyone. Let's get back to the topic. So Imam al-Dhahabi, praised this book called Al-Faruq by Abu Ismail al-Harawi, saying that in that book, he even affirmed what, everyone? The belief that Allah is above. Why? Because some of those who've been affected by Sufiya, especially in the past, glorified Abu Ismail al-Harawi, which he was. He was Azim al-Qadr. He did have considered from those of the ilm, even though he has some tasawwuf with him. But at the same time, Shaykh al-Islam mentioned him in order to what? Use him as a proof to say he even believed that that Allah was above, even though he has some tasawwuf. But at the same time, he's bringing his statements in that book entitled Faruq to establish against those who claim that they follow him in his aqidah, that if you claim that you follow him, this is his belief. Are you following it or not? Because that is the correct belief of the people who are upon the correct belief and those who follow the truth. Is it clear, everyone? Right, so let's continue. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah goes on to say, so now after he mentioned Abu Ismail al-Harawi, he goes on to say, another great alim from the great scholars of the past was called Hafiz ibn Hafiz, the one who's a memorizer of the religion of Islam, the son of another memorizer. Who's that? Listen. وروى هو أيضا وابن أبي حاتم أن هشام بن عبيد الله الرازي, who's also narrated, was a great alim of what we should know. His name was Abdur Rahman ibn Muhammad ibn Idris al-Hanzali al-Razi, who's known with Sunnah as Ibn Abi Hatim. Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi. Not the father, he's the son. He's the son. He's the son of Abu Hatim. His name was what? His name was Abdur Rahman. Abdur Rahman ibn Muhammad ibn Idris al-Hanzali al-Razi, which his tafsir is known to people of Sunnah, especially it's called Tafsir ibn Abi Hatim. This book is still printed and it's still what? Accessible. Tafsir ibn Abi Hatim. But anyway, Shaykh al-Islam mentioned his statement. Ibn Abi Hatim, the Greek Imam. Who was his father? His father was also what? The great Hafiz. Who, everyone? Who's his father? I'm sure that, inshallah, I hope that everyone knows, or some of the people know. Huh? What book do you study in Aqidah? It's called the Aqidah of who? The two Razi. Aqidah al-Raziyayn. Right, everyone? Aqidah al-Raziyayn, the two Raziyayn. Who was one of the Aqidah was who? Abu Zur'a al-Razi. Who was the second? Abu Hatim al-Razi. So in the books you study in Aqidah, that little method that everyone has studied, I'm sure that everyone's familiar with, is called the Aqidah al-Raziyayn. The Aqidah of the two Razis. From them is who? Abu Zur'a al-Razi, and the second is Abu Hatim. Ibn Abi Hatim, Abdur Rahman, that's his father, Abu Hatim. So you have his son, who Shaykh al-Islam is going to mention his statement, and his father, who's considered from the great A'imah of the people of Sunnah, who's Abu Hatim al-Razi, al-Hanzali. Is it clear, everyone? His son, Abdur Rahman ibn Muhammad ibn Idris al-Hanzali al-Razi, he took knowledge from his own father and Abu Zur'a al-Razi. And like we talked about, he has tremendous books. From them is Tafsir ibn Abi Hatim, as I mentioned a moment ago, right, everyone? He also has a tremendous book which all the students of knowledge should have, especially in hadith, and especially the affairs connected with Jarh al-Ta'dil, which is called Kitab al-Jarh al-Ta'dil ibn Abi Hatim. Jarh al-Ta'dil ibn Abi Hatim. The book of Jarh al-Ta'dil, the disparaging and praising of the narrators by Abdur Rahman ibn Abi Hatim. Let's not lose track. What did Shaykh al-Islam mention concerning him? What's the point why we're mentioning him? His son. So now we're talking about his father here. Talking about, what did he mention? His son. He said that Hisham ibn Ubaydillah al-Razi. Hisham ibn Ubaydillah al-Razi al-Busti, in which you'll find that Abu Hatim said about him, Saduq ma ra'aytu fi baladihi a'zama qadran min. وَلَا أَجَلَّ مِنْ. He said that he was very truthful, and I did not see in his city anyone greater in status, in knowledge, more than him, nor more revering than him, meaning respected. Meaning that the great Imam, Abu Hatim, respected Hisham ibn Ubaydullah al-Razi. Is it clear, everyone? So we have Abdul Rahman, his father, Abu Hatim, saying about Hisham ibn Ubaydullah al-Razi that he was a great individual in his city, in his land, excuse me. But what's Shaykh al-Islam saying about him? Sahib Muhammad ibn Hassan. Now look at the connection here. So you have Hisham ibn Ubaydullah. He was a close friend of Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. Who's Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani? As I mentioned in class about 8 months ago, he was very close to who? That was from those who collected and serviced the knowledge of Abu Hanifa. Those who are from the great students of Abu Hanifa who serviced the madhab al-Hanafi was Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, and also Abu Yusuf. I mentioned this in class a couple of months ago. Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, probably maybe about 8 months ago. Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani and Abu Yusuf are the ones who serviced the madhab of Abu Hanifa. Hisham ibn Ubaydullah al-Razi was a close sahib. He's a close friend of who? Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. Right, everyone? So let's keep going. So the judge of the place called Al-Lay, and I'll talk about that later, where Lay is located today. The judge was Hisham, right? Now listen to this. That Hisham ibn Ubaydullah حبس رجلا في التجهم. Look to how the ulama of the past were. Look what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned about him. This is how they protected the truth and how they stood firm upon it. He said that he put in jail a man who believed the belief of Jahm al-Safwan. He imprisoned him, put him in prison. That he believed that Allah does not have any attributes and that Allah is not above. What did he do with this individual? He imprisoned him, put him in prison. He said, فَتَا فَجِيءَ بَهِ إِلَى هِشَامِ عُبَيْدِ اللَّهِ لِيُطْلِقَهُ. He was brought to Hisham in order to be free, or to be set free. فَقَالَ. So this is what Hisham said. Alhamdulillah ala tawbah. So all praises to Allah for tawbah. Then he tested him, Hisham. He said, أَتَشْهَدُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى عَرْشِهِ بَاعِدٌ لِخَلْقِهِ. He said, do you testify that Allah is above the throne, and that He's separate and distinct from His creation? I mean, He's not mixed in the creation. He's not everywhere. So قال. Now listen to what he said. أشهد أن الله على عرشه ولا أدري ما بائن من خلقه. He said, do you testify that Allah is above the throne? He said, I testify that Allah is above the throne. However, I don't know about Allah being separate and distinct from the creation. I don't know about that. I'm not going to say that part. What did he say? Hisham ibn Ubaydullah said, Rudduhu. So, Rudduhu ila al-habs. Put him back in prison. Verily, he did not make tawbah yet. فَإِنَّهُ لَمْ يَتُوب. He didn't make tawbah. So he was brought to his mahkamah, he was brought to his court in order to be set free. Because he claimed that he made proper tawbah. He said, لَمْ يَكْتَفِ الْقَاضِ هِشَامِ بِهَدِي التَّوْبَةِ الْمُعْلَنَةِ بَلْ امْتَحَنَهُ. So you notice that the judge brought him to court. So the greatest of all crimes is what, everyone? The greatest of all crimes is affairs or corrupt beliefs or corrupt ideologies, and one's creed is the greatest of all crimes. Or from the greatest of all crimes. It's even worse than violence. It's the worst form of corruption in the earth. Why? Because corruption in the Aqidah brings violence and corruption in the land. Because all forms of corruption starts within the belief. Then once the belief is corrupt, then it corrupts the actions of the people. So it all starts with the thought process and mentality and conviction of the creation. That's where all evil emanates from. Is it clear, everyone? That's where it emanates from. So that's the reason why you'll find that Ahl-Ilm, that they had the utmost desire in trying to what? Preserve the Aqidah of the people. Because they knew that the point of corruption starts from there. Once a person has either insufficient or a perverted understanding of their Lord, that will come as a result of it, violence and not having any care for the creation. Once a person has some type of deviation, their belief concerning Allah, like we said, what stems from that is corruption within the earth. Once polytheism is deep-rooted, then, like we said, here comes the violence, here comes the murder, here comes the corruption, here comes the deviation and the perverted actions of the people, whether it be sexual perversions or violent perversions or mistreatment of others or mistreatment of the creation, all emanates because, like we said, either deviation concerning Allah or insufficient knowledge or a perverted, distorted version in regards to what they believe about their Lord. All of it, like we said, are considered, like we mentioned, ikhlal, or what we call infringement upon the knowledge of Allah. That is the reason why all lands are corrupt, and that's the reason why you'll find that people indulge in their desires, because they have, like we said, some type of deficiency concerning knowledge of their Lord, or they don't have it at all, or they reject it. And as a result of it, you'll notice that those lands that have no knowledge of Allah or no glorification of Allah, they are the most corrupt lands. That is what reality shows. In every land that does not have proper knowledge of Allah, or a perverted, distorted version, or worship of the devil, or what have you, they are the most corrupt lands. Because people who are so-called possessors of money want to devour and take advantage of the weak in order to what? Increase their status and their wealth. So, the so-called strong economically devour the weak because they don't believe in Allah. They don't believe in it, and they're weak in it. So why should I respect anyone or anything? So you're just like a piece of lint that I will what? Take advantage of, and then I'll throw you out the way when I'm what? Fully have taken advantage of you. And I'll move on to the next prey and the next victim. So those are the affairs you'll find that Hisham ibn Ubaydullah, that he wanted to what? That he wanted to make sure that his belief was intact and that he truly made what? Tawbah. That he made proper tawbah and repentance from that belief or that corrupt belief of tajahum, the belief of Jahm and Safwan. طيب. We'll stop here, inshallah. You'll find, we'll just read the statement and we'll stop. وروى أيضا عن يحيى بن معاذ الرازي. So you notice that all of these are we consider from Al-Razi. So you have Abdur Rahman ibn Abi Hatim. Then you have his son, of course, Abdur Rahman. Then you have Hisham ibn Ubaydullah, also what? Al-Razi. Then you have Yahya ibn Mu'adh Al-Razi. That he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ بَائِلٌ مِنَ الْخَلْقِ وَقَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا وَأَحْصَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عَدَدًا لا يشك في هذه المقالة إلا جهمي رديء ضليل. He said ضال, he said ضليل. وهالك مرتاب يمزج الله بخلقه ويخبط منه الذات بالأقدار والأنتان. Did he say? Yahya Mu'adh al-Razi said that verily Allah is above the throne, separate from His creation. Verily Allah Ta'ala that He encompasses what? Everything in His knowledge. And Allah Ta'ala has kept enumerating everything. Everything is accounted for. No one has a doubt in this statement except a person who's jahmi, filthy and lowly and very misguided. Wahalik murtab, destroyed and doubtful, in which he believes that Allah is mixed with the creation, where his essence is mixed with filthy, disgusting things, meaning the toilet, meaning impurities, and the likes of that. To say that Allah is everywhere necessitates this type of what? Filthy, condescending belief. Is it clear, everyone? And other things. So that's the reason why you'll find that he mentions, says, to say that Allah's essence is mixed with aqdar wa antan, impurities and things that are deemed and believed to be disgusting. So that belief necessitates that Allah will be in filthy things of what can come to your mind, which is the result of this belief that Allah will be in everywhere or anything. Is it clear, everyone? Fine, we'll stop here. Any questions about the lesson? Follow.
I think you clarified, but I just wanted to understand it correctly. You said most of the hadith are da'if. You said all the hadiths that are da'if. The meaning is correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All of them,
Yeah, absolutely. For those narrations of what is meant weak in some of those books, you'll find that they mention it for that reason. Like the meaning is correct in those narrations, even though they're weak in the chains. For example, another book that has something weak in it, which some of the people of falsehood utilize, they say that Kitab al-Tawheed has weak hadith in it. I said, oh really? Kitab al-Tawheed has weak hadith in it. Okay. That's the reason why these people don't understand. The same thing that I just said right now applies to Kitab al-Tawheed. So even though there might be a chain or something in it that's a weak chain, what, everyone? The meaning is what? It's correct. So the same method that I just mentioned, apply that also to Kitab al-Tawheed. That's the reason why knowledge is important these days. If you don't have knowledge to defend yourself, you can easily be subjected to what? The calls of the devil. Because there's a lot of calls of the devil out there, especially from social media. Social media, I've never seen, this is an unprecedented phenomenon, everyone. That social media is extremely dangerous. Extremely. On all levels. Whether it be in Aqidah, whether it be in anything. It will mess and twist your head up if you are not a strong-minded person. It will mess up your mind, twist it, and mess your iman up if you are not careful. And everyone has a platform now. Everyone. People have shown me, people have made mere mistakes in fundamentals of the religion. And he has thousands of followers. Thousands. And I'm like, this is a mere mistake in fundamentals. And people actually agree with that, which shows you what? How the affair of what the Messenger of Allah mentioned, authentic hadith, is becoming true. What is that? When the Messenger of Allah said, إِذَا وُسِدَ الْأَمْرِ إِلَى غَيْرِ أَهْلِهِ فَانْتَظِرِ السَّاعَةِ. He says, when the affairs of the religion, or the affairs of anything, especially the affairs of the religion, if it's put in the hands of people who are not qualified for it, and they are not its people, and it's put in their hands, wait for the hour to be established. Know that the hour is drawn close, even more. And that's what you see today. The affairs now are put in the hands of people who are not its people. They're not qualified. They're just people who are eloquent speakers or motivational speakers. They've been given some type of eloquence. They have embellished speech, even though what they're saying is absolutely wrong. But they know how to decorate it very well in order for the people to believe it and make it fair seeming, so the people can accept it. I've seen it all the time. And some of their Arabic is horrible. But the people think, oh yeah, he saw us speak Arabic. People who know and understand and listen, they're like, oh my God, are you serious? And he has thousands of followers? Wow. Scary. Thousands. Being misguided by an individual whose what? Speech is decorated. Just knows how to fast talk very well. Knows how to fast talk you. Spin you around until you what? Until you become from his supporters and subscribers. Right, everyone? His supporters and his subscribers. The affair is extremely scary. All a person has to do is be technically savvy, make an account, quote a little bit of Arabic, done. I got a platform. Platform where I can have thousands of followers. Misleading the people, misleading the masses. Easily. It's scary. People have shown me numerous speakers, and I'm looking, I'm like, wow, he's making a mistake in the fundamentals. Fundamentals. That every Muslim, it's like ABCs. And the people are really following to let you know that people have abandoned knowledge and they embarked upon just merely looking at, as they say, the tea of today. The tea of the day. They just bring topics that are controversial, that everybody's talking about, so that rouses your interest and you listen to it. Oh, he must be somebody in knowledge. Not realizing that he's the most ignorant people and he's passing his ignorance on to you. He's just busy you with a controversial topic just because that's so-called, at the moment, the tea of today. Because that's something that everybody wants to hear. And that's how they gain their followers. But it's not knowledge. You bring to these people, have you finished these books? Going through the book, finish it from beginning to end. Finishing the books, raising the people in knowledge, being a Rabban, someone who develops and gradually develops the people from the beginner level, the beginner stages in knowledge, until they gradually get them to the higher one. Finishing the books left and right, going through one book after another book, and trying to truly educate the people. They don't do that. That's what will help you decipher between who truly is just a so-called person who just wants mere followers to the person who really wants good for the people. And that's the majority of what you see on social media now. People who just what they call clout chasers. They're just chasing clout. But the people are what? Supporting them. And this is a scary, scary time we live in. And we just ask Allah to keep us firm, and keep our hearts planted firm, and our feet planted firm, and we have to make dua for our children. Our children are living in a very serious, dangerous time. Extremely dangerous. Extremely. I can't even, that's a word more higher than extremely than tell me. But extremely dangerous time we're living in. Extremely. Like as he said, the mere end of their fingertips can what? Destroy their iman. Just at their fingertips can destroy their iman and mess their mind up. To the point where shaitan is even confused people about their own sexuality. And I've heard there's even surgery being now, that in certain hospitals, they're trying to sweep it up under the rug. That little kids, children, they are removing their testicles, or their private parts, changing them at a young age now. If this is not satanic, I don't know what is. A child doesn't even know what they want. Of course they're going to say, oh, I'm a female. And they might just be joking around. It's just because they're a kid. They don't know. Yeah, what do you ask? You know as a child, do you believe you're a female? Yeah, I believe I'm a female. Khalas. It's scary. Shaitan, exactly what he mentioned in the book of Allah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book about the shaitan from his plot, what shaitan is doing it. It is extremely dangerous. Destroying masculinity, destroying femininity, mixing it up, mixing up the roles, mixing up the scary time. So, brothers and sisters, like we said, learn knowledge, proper knowledge from the proper people. Don't be confused by the people who's always the clout chasers and the subscribers and the viewer chasers, and know who's truly qualified to disseminate knowledge. You would never go to just a mere person who just studied a car for just 10 days and read a book. No, you go into a mechanic that knows what he's doing. That he's been doing this for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. He put his time in. He knows what he's doing. You understand? Y'all look for that individual because he knows his stuff. If that's in regards to your dunya, what about your deen? What about your religion? Don't you think you need to be very cautious of who you choose to put your ear to? Because your ear goes right to your heart. What goes in of what a person says, the canal to your heart is your ears and your eyes. That's the canal to your heart. Did you clear everyone? Any other questions? We stop. 55 minutes. But stop here, inshallah. But I see you guys tomorrow. Or German time here. Stop. Suffice. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب